Greetings, everybody. Hi, I am Erin Taylor Young doing our 52-week memory verse challenge. You can find a list of these verses on my website, erintayloryoung.com. You can also get them at catch.me/ErinTYoung. You can find them on YouTube, lots of places. So again, I'm Erin Taylor Young. I'm an author. I'm a speaker, a teacher. My humor stuff, my blog. If you need encouragement, that's a good place to check out because we like to laugh and we like to talk about the reality of what's really going on in life. And so that's my blog. And let's see, I do podcast, Write from the Deep. You can find that at writefromthedeep.com or on iTunes or Stitcher. That's WRITE, and that's really for creatives, writers, people. It is to encourage you in those deep places, because that's where we write our story from, the deep. You have a message, whether you're a writer or not, you have a message, and it's going to come from that deep place inside of you. So we don't really want to escape those deep, hard, horrible places. We want to dig in and let God do his work with us there. So that all said, today I'm doing our verse. Let me flip this so you can see it. Is James 1:22. Prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. Ouch. See, that's one of my ouch verses. But prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. The thing is, heard something, we have a greater responsibility to do than the person who hasn't heard. So it increases our responsibility when we've heard, and we do hear. We get our Bible, we read our Bible, we go to church. Doers of the word is where we need to be headed, what we need to be working toward. The thing that this verse really calls out is that if you're not a doer of the word, you're deluded. You're deluding yourself. To be deluded is basically, it's to be blinded to your true state. So it's easy for us to go along and to think, wow, everything's great, and I'm being a good Christian, and I'm going to my Bible study. But if you're not doing anything, you don't even know. You're deluded, and being deluded, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's super important to be putting into practice, so we're not getting these misguided beliefs about who we are. We're not getting a false impression about who we are or what kind of people, what kind of followers we are, because God wants followers that are wholehearted. This is the best way that we can glorify him, and the best way that he can make us into what he wants us to be. And that's it's all for our good and for his glory. So the other thing about this verse that I like, prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. I like that because it really sums up the whole book, because basically that's all the book of James. If you want to know what the book of James is about, just that's the verse. Put into practice what you say that you believe, or what you profess to believe. Put that into practice. So he goes on after this, and he talks about the one who hears the word and doesn't put into practice is like the one who looks intently into the mirror and studies himself, and then turns away and forgets what he looks like. And honestly, that sounds so totally ridiculous. And yet at the same time, I feel like, haven't I gone to a Bible study, studied so intently something about God, and then walked away and forgotten that aspect of my God, or forgotten to treat God accordingly to that new thing that I've learned. That's the whole disconnect I think that we have. That's one of the whole reasons why I really am focusing on this 52-week memory verse challenge, pulling this word in our hearts so that it can give us something to pray, something to believe, something to change the way we think, and now something to change the way we behave. So, and I'm going to give you an example from my own life. I have been struggling with anxiety probably since I became a Christian, and maybe earlier in my life, and I just didn't catch on. But interestingly, I know a lot of that was it was just spiritual attack. and I would pray and I would fight against it in that way. And over the course of time, I'm just like, okay, this thing in my gut has come again. It's like I kept thinking that verse where it's just, this thing can't come out except by prayer, and so I would just pray and just wait for it to go away. And that's been kind of the way I would deal with it, because I was like, well, I don't have anything right now that I'm anxious about, so I know this is not, this isn't something that I'm choosing. It's just weird. And so that's why I thought is spiritual attack. And in part, I still believe that. My doctor actually gave me some medication once, and I tried taking it. I'm like, no, this is not working. I am so anxious now. I'm much more anxious. Get rid of the medication. This is not biochemical in any way. So, but I'll tell you what happened is that I've had a very stressful thing happen in my business, and it was very unexpected, sudden, hard growing. I suddenly had this huge amount of responsibility to try to clean up this thing that happened, and it was very stressful. And I felt that anxiety, and I kept praying and waiting for it to go away. And I would talk to my friend, I have a good friend, and I would talk to her about it, and she's like, yeah, okay, it might be spiritual attack, and maybe this is something, obviously you've got a lot going on, but you've been anxious since I've known you. And I'm like, what? So she's known me for several years, and I'm like, wow, that can't be good. That was a wake-up call for me to say, well, I've been deluding myself somewhere, somehow along the way. I need to figure out somehow more steps I can take. And I ended up listening to a series of sermons, which I had never heard before, by John Piper. And it really spoke to me and helped me figure out proactively what more I can do to change my behavior, to trust. Because anxiety, in his sermon, he was talking about the sin of unbelief, where we don't trust God. We don't believe God to do the things he's going to say he's going to do. And so, the one that was on anxiety having to do with that, it was really helpful for me, because it's like, well, wait, am I really trusting in God's promises? What does that look like? How does that play out in my actions? So that was where I had to change my actions, and to change my thought process, and to physically keep reminding myself, mentally, emotionally, physically, that I had to push all of those cares onto God and leave them with him. And it was a process of changing behavior, not just praying, yes. It was interesting too, because he was talking about, this is a fight. Everybody just be ready. When we become Christians, that's not the end of the fight. It's the beginning of the fight. And Satan is going to sling mud at us, and he is going to sling anxiety at me. Fine. I need to figure out how to wipe it away, and with tools, and with prayer, and with believing and making my belief into action, and how I'm going to deliberately choose to not think about that thing anymore, because I've given that to God. So it gave me some deliberate action. So anyway, there you go. That's one of the ways that I changed my behavior. I'm still changing it. You can pray for me. But I know out there that we all have things we can work on. We all have things that we can change to be more the reflection of Christ that God wants us to be, and he wants to help us do it. That's the beauty part. None of this is about, oh, you are a bad Christian. No, all of this is about the freedom that God wants us to have, and the glory in him, and the delight in him, and the kind of life that just rides free and trusts him with everything. That's what he wants for us. And so that's what this is about. It's about getting to that very cool and very wonderful place. So let's go back to our verse here, maybe. Come on. Okay, but prove yourselves doers of the word, and not merely hearers who delude themselves. James 1:22. See you guys next time.